Hey YouTube, my name's Tyler, creator of the Kingdoms trading card game, and thank you for taking your precious time and clicking on this video. I have to give credit to Ethan, who commented on my last video suggesting that I do a deck profile of one of the decks that I play with. So let's go ahead and dive right into the deck profile of my Furbish deck. Alright, so here is my deck profile for my Furbish deck. I have it on top of my Furbish game mat right here. First, I'll point out that I do have for my card sleeves that famous artwork called The Scream. I have some socks that are of this artwork, so I thought it'd be cool to get cards that are in this. And I thought too, maybe as a way to just scare my opponent right from the get-go, they'd see this and maybe be scared to play me. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and do my deck profile. So this is a Furbish deck, and really trying to abuse some of the powerful cards in it that cost a lot of magicka, and so I'm trying to generate a lot of magicka and also stall my opponent from being able to do anything. So first of all, I run 3 copies of Council Board Member. Council Board Member is my major card search. It is my main engine to the deck. This is what allows me to get the cards out that I need to get out, and it really helps me get back into the match if I'm starting to fall behind. On top of that, I run three copies of Furbish Counselor. Furbish Counselor, because it gives you 2 magicka per turn, it's just a super important card to have out on the field, and +2, you can keep it alive by using its Impact 2 ability. So what's nice is you can kind of set it on the field to set yourself up for that one explosive turn that you need to do, or act as cannon fodder for washaways. I run 2 copies of Furbish Temple Judge. Furbish Temple Judge is a very good card, probably a card that will eventually have to be limited unless the other cards that come out in set 2 kind of help nullify how good it is. But it does cost 9 magicka. It's a great card because it does -100, 100 to all of your opponent's cards, which makes it just super, super awesome. I do run 2 copies of Prison Guard. Prison Guard's okay. There's probably a couple other better cards that I could run in the deck, but I just like the fact that it does have that Silence 1 ability, just an extra way to pester the opponent and everything. And then I do run 3 individual copies of a card. I run 1 copy of Young Child, 1 copy of Washaways, and then 1 copy of Light Warden. I like Young Child because it gives the +100 to all my other cards. Even though there could be other better cards in the game that are neutrals, I like this card also too because it has the silence, and who wouldn't want to play this cute little card in their deck anyways. Light Warden, probably my best card in this deck in regards to attack power. It does have 800 attack. It does cost 9, but again, if I can use Council Board Member while I'm in phase 3, then that's totally fine. And that's kind of the goal with this deck as well, is I want to get to phase 3, because once I'm in phase 3, I can do whatever I want. Washaways is maybe the second best card, and it's just a great answer card. It's able to get a bunch of cards that your opponent has on the field, send them to the graveyard, and it's just kind of a good reset bonus. And what's nice too is you can kind of capitalize on this by having Council Board Member, bring out another card, and all of a sudden you're just making Washaways get that much more powerful. I do run 3 Outpost Towers. I love Outpost Tower just because it is such a good card draw card, and it's a 300, cost 5, so it's not too bad. And then to round off the battle cards, I do run 2 copies of Time Scribe. This is not the official artwork for Time Scribe, but this is a artwork that one of my friends did, and Alex, and so I also, if anyone ever draws a card other than myself, I make sure to give them the credit on that. So this is a great card too, even though I do feel bad playing it sometimes because I don't like how it just completely shuts your opponent's turn down, their attack phase. This is perfect for me and this deck because it's giving me time to set up my turn that I need, and also just completely stopping your opponent, especially when they've set up such a good turn. And I could always, on my following turn, use Washaways and make what they have done count for nothing. So that is for the battle cards. In regards to the spells, first I run 3 Temple Watches. Temple Watches, I run 3 of these because this is essentially acting as an additional copy of any Furbish spell that I have. So I figure if I run 3 of these, I can run a couple less copies of my other Furbish spells. And so that way, when I'm playing a token that maybe requires me to send a card to the graveyard, it doesn't hurt so bad because I have Temple Watch to bring it right back. I run 2 Silences. Silence is just a good Silence 3 card. I don't run 3 of them just because eventually you got to have cards that are making a move on your opponent, not just stalling your opponent. I run 1 Power on Numbers. I'm thinking about taking it out, 1 because it costs so much, even though I have found that the sweet spot for my deck is just getting 2 of those 4 tokens out and having 13 magicka. There's been times where often I have about 15 to 17 magicka every turn just with all my cards that I'm able to have. This card's kind of cool because it can bring me back, and I guess too what it can act as filling up my board and then giving me some cards to use for washaways to make washaways a better card. So that's kind of a fun card to have. I run 1 Spiritual Connection and 1 Hush of Furbish. The Spiritual Connection I run simply because I run 2 of the Tuneeps, and being able to draw cards is super important in any card game. And then 1 Hush of Furbish because even though it's a little bit more expensive, I do have a couple cards that bring the cost down of spells, and some cards that specifically bring the cost of Furbish spells down. And there's something really nice when you can use a spell that your opponent was going to play and cancel it and use it yourself. So that makes it really good. I do run, for neutral spells, I run 2 Divine Wisdom. If you're playing against a Furbish player, it's really good, and also an Esther Crest player. But Linford, they don't run many spells, but still it's a good card to have. And then I also run 2 Rest from Warfares. Again, just kind of stalling your opponent. It kind of stinks though because it prevents me from attacking as well, but if you're slowing both yourself and the other opponent down, essentially you're just giving both of you a free turn. But if you're building up a good board state, then it doesn't really matter. And then just for individual copies, I run 1 Summoner's Call and 1 Incinerate. I will only run 1 Summoner's Call just because there's not a lot of cards that I really desire to bring back. And again, I can always use Hush of Furbish to act as a second copy of a Summoner's Call if your opponent plays it. And then just Incinerate, because all the other kingdoms that you play against, they don't really run many counter spells, so it's perfect to have that because they usually don't have an answer to that. Moving on to my spirits, I run 2 Tuneep. Mainly it's for that instant card draw ability, but sometimes if I have a lot of spells that I want to try to use, I will use the Impact 4 ability just to make my spells cost a lot cheaper. I run 1 Legend, that's the Lawful Knight. In one regard, I think he's a little overpowered, but at the same time, his health is so low that he could just be destroyed by a bunch of little piddly creatures, piddly battle cards. But he's just a great beater, and because I'm able to get so much magicka out with this deck, playing this guy is really no problem at all. In regards to tokens, I run 3 Master's Tables. I love the Master's Table. I don't really like sending cards to the graveyard, but that's also because I don't really have any cards in the game at this point that really value sending cards to the graveyard. Esther Crest, you could say, really values that. But as a Furbish player, I don't want to send any cards to the graveyard because it hurts me, but I need a lot of magicka, so this is my only option that I have. And then to round off my tokens, I run 2 4 tokens, just because you can only have 3 copies of any given card. And so that is the total of my actual fortress. I only have, it's a 40 card deck. There's no cards in the game that currently would justify running more than 40. So that is that. And then just to round off the deck, I do have a couple Sacreds that I'm probably going to switch out, but for right now, I run 1 Skylight Fountain, 1 Mystic Room, 1 Schwal Waterfall, 1 Marketplace, and 1 The Room. You can only have 1 copy of one copy of a Sacred in your Sacred deck. I typically will pick a Skylight Fountain for my 3rd and Marketplace for my 2nd, and then my opponent is left to choose between the Mystic Room, Waterfall, and The Room for my 1st Sacred. But these are all pretty good. They deal with spells or just kind of stalling their opponent or just have a tremendously high amount of health, so it just gives me a lot of flexibility. I'm probably going to switch out one of them for the library, but at the same time, because it's 40 cards, it's not a big deck, and because my deck is a slower paced deck, I can't really afford to just take my time and chew through my deck. There's been plenty of games where I've been a little concerned with how many cards I had left in my deck, because if I run out, I was going to lose. So that is my deck profile, and thanks for watching. Thank you guys for watching the deck profile video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it gave you some ideas so that when you go to make your own Kingdoms trading card game deck, that you have an idea of what type of cards you're supposed to run, especially if you are playing with Furbish. Now that we're at the end of the video, though, I want to do something real quick that I like to call Bible Talk. I'm only going to take a minute or 2 of your time, so please hang tight and just take a listen. Right now I'm reading in the book of Job, and Job, if you're not familiar with the story, is a man who loved God, who served God, who did all the things that God wanted him to do, but still he ended up going through a tremendous trial in his life. He lost his whole family, he lost all of his possessions, and he was in agony, he was in pain, he was in torment, he was suffering. And one thing that's interesting though is that when you're reading the book of Job, you will see that it takes, I think, nearly 30 chapters for God to finally interject and start speaking to Job himself rather than Job's 3 friends speaking to him. And what it made me realize is that sometimes when we're going through pain, sometimes when we're going through hardship or suffering, God sometimes is patient. He lets you walk through the process. It doesn't necessarily mean that he is not with you or walking with you. It just might mean he's letting you see how you can handle it. He's waiting to come in at the right moment so that way he can speak the right things that will really just have a powerful impact on your life. So if you're going through something difficult, I want to encourage you to not get anxious, to not get stressed, rather walk through the process. Because once you walk through the process entirely, you will look back and see this is why. This is why God was maybe a little bit more patient or a little bit slower, even though it's his perfect timing in addressing the situation. So that's all I want to say for the Bible Talk. Again, thank you guys for watching this video. If you missed a couple of the announcements, they were in last week's video where I was talking about some of the stuff regarding social media, some of the cards on being on the Game Crafter, and also what I'm hoping to do to come. Also, I think it was in that video as well that I also did my first lore video, so go check that out where it's giving you the story behind the game, and I think it turned out really well, and I'm excited to do more of those. And with that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, evening, or night, or whenever you're watching this. Thanks.